is taking some time away from the team. LeBron has not been with the team since Sunday's win over Portland. He sat out that game with a sore left foot. Redick is uncertain if LeBron will be with the Lakers for Friday's game at Minnesota. It looks like there's been a change in thinking about Bronny James playing road games in the G League with the South Bay Lakers. LeBron's son will be with South Bay for tonight's game in Tempe, Arizona against the Valley Suns. This would be Bronny's first road game with South Bay. Crucial game for the Rams tonight at San Francisco. The Rams need a win to stay in contention in the NFC West. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is going for his fifth straight game without an interception. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net. And together, we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour is STEM education failing people and children of color in particular. If so, how can schools create a culturally relevant curriculum for STEM education? And are there fun science, tech, engineering, and or math projects you can do with your children during the holidays to keep them on track? We'll talk about it in hour two with former NASA engineer and STEM educator Dr. Nehemiah Mabry. In our third hour, nutritionist and author Maya Feller on her favorite soulful holiday recipes. Her book is entitled Eating from Our Roots, 80-plus healthy home-cooked favorites from cultures around the world. Maya Feller today in our third hour. That should be delicious. That's what I did there. All right, anyway, in our first hour, two more conversations on the B side of this hour. Mark Macarro on his impassioned pardon pitch to President Joe Biden aboard Air Force One. Macarro is president of the National Congress of American Indians, and everybody can't get FaceTime with the president aboard Air Force One. And so I am mad at Mark Macarro, but it sounds like he used his time wisely for an impassioned pitch to President Joe Biden regarding pardons. We'll talk about that in particular on the B side of this hour. All that said, we commence today's show talking politics and pardons with longtime Tennessee Congressman Steve Cohen, who I am pleased to welcome back to this program. Congressman Cohen, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Tavis, and it's good to be back with you. You're one of my favorite broadcasters, if not my favorite.
You are kind. You are very kind. You're one of my favorite members of Congress for many years, more years than I can count, in fact, and I'm always delighted to be in conversation with you. Let me just jump right in. Speaking of pardons, there is so much breaking news. Let me tell you three things right quick, and when we come forward, we'll get into it with the congressman. But at this hour, we now know that Time Magazine has announced its Person of the Year. I have the cover in front of me here in the studio. Take one wild guess, just one wild guess who their Person of the Year is this year. It is Donald J. Trump. We'll talk about that and what Time Magazine has to say about why it chose him as the Person of the Year. He's on the cover right now as Person of the Year for 2024, Time Magazine. There's other news that I find far more interesting. Joe Biden. We've been pressing Joe Biden. I hope and pray there's more to come. But today, the president commutes the sentences of 1,500 Americans, a record for one day. 1,500 people, and pardoning 39 people convicted of nonviolent crimes in a sweeping act of clemency during his final weeks in office. I do not know as yet whether this is it. I hope and pray there's more to come. But the White House says it is the largest number of commutations by an American president ever in a single day. So we'll talk about that with Congressman Cohen, these pardons when we come forward. And not to be outdone, Donald Trump announced right after that on his very first day, in his first hour, he'll begin pardoning the folk caught up in the January 6th insurrection. Joe Biden does the most commutations in one day, and then Trump says, watch this. The minute I get inaugurated, and I get into the Oval Office in my very first hour, not my first day, in my first hour, I am pardoning all these folk who got caught up, lost their minds in that January 6th insurrection. That's what Trump had to say to what Biden had to say. And speaking of elections, our guest in this hour, in this half hour, Congressman Steve Cohen, has introduced a resolution to abolish the Electoral College. It's about time. There's a resolution now introduced in the House to abolish the Electoral College. A lot to talk about with Steve Cohen when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Here's another great reason to use the United States Postal Service this season. When sending a package, why venture outside? Ship with USPS for a true holiday ride. Want to stay cozy and warm? There's no need to roam. With free package pickup and labels printed from home. We have over 600,000 employees always in motion. And before you know it, your gift has delivered emotion. Spread the holiday joy this season with USPS's enhanced network. Learn more at USPS.com/holidayride.
The revolution will not be televised.
This is Brother Cornell West. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm full of joy and delight to announce that I'm joining the precious family at KBLA Talk 1580, founded and led by my dear, dear brother Tavis Smiley himself. Yes, the name of the show is Truth Time, and I'll be working with the inimitable Nina Turner out of Cleveland, Ohio, sister of great vision, and we will be on weekdays at 12 noon. We will be following Brother Tavis Smiley's show. We will begin Monday, January the 6th. That's right, Monday, January the 6th. Get ready for a different kind of insurrection. We coming with Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer and Curtis Mayfield and Aretha Franklin, and gonna add a little Gil Scott Heron too, as Nina Simone sits at the center. That's right.
The revolution will be live.
That's what we gonna do. Please come with us on this fantastic voyage.
The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. Driver's seat.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Congressman Steve Cohen. Let me start with this, Congressman, get this out of the way, then we'll push forward. Donald Trump, as I said moments ago, has once again been named the Person of the Year by Time Magazine. Interesting cover photo. He was Time's person when he won the first time back in 2016. So this is his second time around. I don't know that anybody's ever done that. Maybe, I'm sure somebody has, but haven't had time to research it. But this is the second time around being named the Person of the Year by Time Magazine. I want to just read very quickly from Sam Jacobs, the editor-in-chief at Time Magazine. Sam Jacobs writes in the piece, on the cusp of his second presidency, all of us, from his most fanatical supporters to his most fervent critics, are living in the age of Trump. Once again, Trump is at the center of the world and in as strong a position as he has ever been. Close quote. Your thoughts about that, for starters, Congressman Cohen?
Well, we've gone back. Kamala said we're not going back. We went back. And we're going to be back in the 50s, because a lot of the people that Trump relates to, and he should be Man of the Year, I guess, because he's going to have the biggest impact on the country and the world. Mm-hmm. And he did come back, and I didn't think he was going to win either. But so much of what he's got, if you look at it, he's got wife abusers, he's got sexual assaulters, he's got conspiracy theorists, he's got COVID freaks and deniers, vaccine vilifiers. It's like going back to the 50s. People that don't believe in science, that cozy up to Russia and like Tulsi does, and Assad, and I hate to say it for Bobby, because his father hated Roy Cohn, and now Bobby is sucking up to Roy Cohn's mentee, mm-hmm. Donald Trump. I mean, would the circle go unbroken? It's sad what's happened, but I think my person of the year would probably have been Davey Martinez.
Tell me more.
Well, the Dodgers won the World Series.
I just want you to say that part. I am sitting in L.A., so I needed the rest of that sentence
yeah.
for the folk listening in L.A., yeah.
Yeah. My mama didn't birth no fool.
There you go. You know where you are. So Congressman Cohen says Dave Roberts should be the Person of the Year, and there are a lot of Dodgers fans listening right now who would not argue with that. The Tulsi that he mentioned earlier, of course, would be Tulsi Gabbard, who he served alongside with, or she served alongside him. He was there longer in the House. And the Bobby he's talking about, and his father would be Bobby Kennedy Jr. So there you have it. Not a whole lot to say. I'm not surprised.
And thank you for cleaning that up. I said Davey Martinez, who's been the Washington manager.
No, I know what you meant. I knew. Sure. My mama didn't raise no fool either, so I know what you meant when you said do Dodgers. You meant Dave Roberts, and I ain't mad at you.
Yeah.
Let me just say this before I move on. This is not surprising to me. You expected Donald Trump would be the Person of the Year. Whatever you think of him, what he pulled off is historic. We've never seen anything like this before. And so the Time Magazine Person of the Year doesn't mean they're endorsing the Person of the Year. It just means that they believe this person has and will have the greatest impact born of what happened in this particular year. So in that regard, Congressman Cohen and I agree. There you have it. Donald Trump is the Person of the Year. I'm sure you'll all be running out to get your copies at the newsstand. But there's that news about Donald Trump. The bigger news for me, because again, that was to be expected. But before I do that, though, before I go to bigger news, you said a moment ago that you did not expect Donald Trump to win again. Tell me why you feel that way. You actually thought Kamala could pull this off?
Well, I thought that the American people would not have elected a person convicted of 34 felonies who's been pretty much verified to be basically a thief. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a grifter. He got so much money out of the Trump Hotel here with foreign people coming and visiting and buying rooms that I don't think they ever used. They just used that as a way to launder money.
Sure.
And the $2 billion that Kushner got out of Saudi Arabia was obviously a payoff. And then because the financial gurus over there said, don't do this, and then the Crown Prince or whatever said, do it, because he knew he was buying a share in Trump. And that's the way you deal with this man. It's all commercial. And that's the way you have influence. So we've gone back a long way. And the people that get upset about, you look at Christopher Wray. He was a good FBI director. He's a decent man. But they want to cash Patel in because they want to go after people. And they want to use they want to make Hoover look good.
Oh, wow.
That's hard to believe. I've had bills in almost every year I've been in Congress to have the name of J. Edgar Hoover taken off the FBI building because of COINTELPRO and the things he did back then and the things he did with Dr. King and you name it. He blackmailed everybody. He blackmailed Kennedy. He blackmailed Eisenhower. He knew the girlfriends, and he basically stayed in office forever. I'm sorry that Christopher Wray resigned. I wish he'd have stayed on, but that's not his style, and he said he didn't want to hurt the FBI, and it would have hurt the FBI, and it probably would have. But this is the first sign of an autocrat. He doesn't respect the law. He says his own power is more important and more powerful than the law, and that's what happened. Yeah. The law says he's there for 10 years, and Christopher Wray gave into it, and that's the first buckle, and we're going to see a lot more of it. We've seen Grassley come out against him, and a lot of people coming to Pete Huseth's defense, and of course what he did up in Monterey with that is pretty clear. He paid the woman off, and he can't manage anything. He had a couple of veterans organizations with very few members, and he took them into the dust. The guys, the idea of him being defense, and now it comes out. Even says he's bashed women and said they shouldn't be in the military. And I think he said something yesterday, or they found something where he said that gays should openly be fighting in the military because that's I don't know, communism or whatever. But I mean, just crazy stuff.
No, well, yeah, we're bracing.
By the way, I'm going to give you an exclusive.
Sure.
It's not. I told Axios yesterday, but I don't think they printed it yet.
Yeah.
I am not going to the inauguration. And the last time I didn't go in 2017, I was John Lewis was first, and I think I was second, and there were quite a few of us that didn't go. But I'm not going to go. I'm not going to sit up on that in that gallery behind that man when he pardons a whole bunch of people that tried to overthrow our country, that destroyed and damaged, disgraced and defiled the Capitol building. And had me, putting on a gas mask to get the hell out of there, the gallery, and come to my office where I sat here with a Minnie Minoso baseball bat waiting for him to come in. The idea that he's going to pardon those people is anathema to me.
No, you heard it.
I'm not going.
Yeah, you heard it.
I talked to Benny Thompson. Benny tells me he's not going, and I don't think Joe Neguse is going. I think there'll be quite a few Democrats that don't go.
Yeah, Benny was just on. Benny was just on this program a few days ago. So there you hear it. You hear it from Steve Cohen's mouth first on Tavis Smiley that he and others, including Benny Thompson, will not be attending the inauguration. And I suspect, as the congressman just said, that number will grow. Two things right quick before I move on. You mentioned the Hoover Building. Every time I'm in D.C., and I drive past that building and I look up and see his name on that building, I just shake my head. It really is a travesty. After all that we know now about J. Edgar Hoover, that his name has not been taken down off that building. Think about all the statues of these Confederate leaders and all these other persons whose histories we now have a better sense of, and the way that we have, corrected the public record, as it were, for J. Edgar Hoover's name to still be on the FBI building for all the reasons that Congressman Cohen just mentioned. It's an anathema, to use your word. That is an anathema to me. To Kamala, one final comment, and we'll move on. I was reading the other day, some of you probably saw the story. There's the Kamala team, members of her team, campaign team, did an in-depth interview a few days ago. And I was fascinated to learn how frank they were on the record. Now, you remember David Plouffe and these other folk who ran Obama's successful campaign when he ran for president. That's part of the team that stewarded Kamala's team. And they went on the record, some of them the other day, saying that the entire time, from the time that Joe Biden passed the baton to Kamala, never, ever, never, at any point in time, did their internal polling match what we were being told. They never internally had Kamala winning this race. Not one time. I was actually shocked they went on the public record and said that. But at no point from the time Joe Biden stood down to the night that the election, to November 5th, when the election was called for Donald Trump, at no point internally did their numbers ever have them beating Donald Trump. Now, I raise that only because I could spend hours talking about this. I've told y'all repeatedly about these polls, these surveys, these studies. The fact that their internal polling is almost the exact opposite of all the thrill and all the fundraising and all the this and all the that. You heard Congressman Cohen say he thought Trump was going to win. Well, Kamala's team could have told you, if they were being upfront, that she wasn't going to win. Now, of course, they would never have done that, nor should they. And their goal was to fight, scrap, claw, and try to win. I get it. I'm just telling you, when you read this stuff after the fact, that their internal polling never had her winning at any point. It's weird, to use the word they love to use during this campaign. It is weird that we were having all this conversation and talking about how close it was in the swing states and all that. They knew internally she wasn't going to win a single swing state. I digress on that for now, given that my time is running. Joe Biden has today commuted the sentences of 1,500 Americans, a record for one day. Your thoughts, Congressman Cohen?
I'm pleased he did it, and I hope he does a ton more. I think he did a whole bunch of folks that had been released during to home arrest during the COVID pandemic, and so that was easy to do them in one fell swoop. They'd already been gone through the process, and they had some objective thoughts that they wouldn't be risks to the society.
Right.
But there's so many people that should be released, and President Obama could have done more. He did a lot at the end. I think he did about 5,000. And he must have done a lot in one day to do 5,000 because he didn't do them except toward the end. But there are a lot of people in there that should be released. I recommended a person in my community who was convicted maybe 20, 25 years ago, and he's since become a very active and well-respected man at helping people that have been in prison get jobs and get job training and turn their lives around. He's kind of a hero in Memphis for doing that. Right. But see, he hadn't been vetted, because he wasn't in prison during the pandemic, so there's no reason for him to get a home arrest and then get on this list automatically. I'm afraid they've waited too long to do a really good audit of who is desirous of pardons, some from 20, 25 years ago, and that should get them pardons or commutations. Certainly there are a lot of people that are more deserving than Jared Kushner's father.
Yeah, I want to put a finer point on this, given that President Biden pardoned his son. We've been putting pressure on him every day to do more for the other persons who deserve these pardons, who deserve clemency. And I want to put the congressman is a politician, so he has his own way of speaking. Let me just put it to you my way. I appreciate what Joe Biden has done today, but this is a layup. It's a layup. It is a shot with no degree of difficulty. This is not a three-pointer. This ain't a Steph Curry shot. This is a layup, which you or I could have hit. Why? The congressman just laid it out. Most of these commutations affect those who had been released from prison and placed in home confinement during the coronavirus pandemic. He is not stretching out here. This is not Joe Biden being bold. It's a headline, and we're talking about it, but it's a layup. There is so much more the president ought to do and needs to do between now and the time he leaves office, given that he decided to pardon his own son. He had time enough to do that. He got that one done, but that's the congressman's point. He's afraid that they've waited too late for us to really expect to see the level of pardon, the level of clemency that we believe the president ought to engage. We will see what he does, in fact, get done between now and the rest of the year or the rest of his term. But remember I told y'all a few weeks ago, when you read stuff, you got to read for what's not there. You got to read for what's not being said and interrogate, in fact, what you're reading while you're reading it. So you can get caught up in the headline. Biden commutes the sentences of 1,500 Americans, a record for one day. What they not really telling you, what the headline really ought to say, is what Congressman Cohen and I just said, which is that, in my phraseology, it's a layup, and the president ought to do better. I digress. Let me move on. So not to be outdone.
You're exactly right. You say it's a layup. I'm looking at a picture of God in my office of John Morant doing a dunk. It was no dunk. It was a layup.
There you go. Ja Morant's a great player. I just hope he keeps himself out of trouble so he doesn't need a clemency or a pardon one day. You got to keep Ja Morant on the straight and narrow. I digress on that. He's an amazing player for the Grizzlies. That's why, of course, Congressman Cohen is shouting out his hometown, Ja Morant. I ain't mad at you. Your mama didn't raise no fool. I get that. I get that. In the few minutes that I have left, let me run to this right quick. So Donald Trump, not to be outdone, Joe Biden announces the most commutations in one day. Donald Trump says, in my first hour. He says this, in fact, in the Time magazine article. So Time, obviously, very wisely pushed this thing out immediately today after Biden does these commutations. So now we know from the Time article, Trump says in his very first hour, he is going to start pardoning nonviolent participants in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. How do you read that, Congressman?
Well, to some extent, it's Trump needing to absolve himself of these people going to prison. They went to prison because Donald Trump called a rally and called all of the MAGAs and all of the Proud Boys and all of the whatever their rest of them were to Washington and said, if you don't go up there and fight like hell, you're not going to have a government anymore. You're not going to have a country. You have to go up there and fight like hell. And he sent them up there. He might, I don't know that the man has a conscience, but he might have a little bit of a conscience and realize they're all in jail because he sent them up there and he put them up to it. And that's why Jack Smith had going after him, and Jack Smith had an indictment, and he would have been convicted before a jury of trying to overthrow the government. He got away with it, just like with Michael Cohen. They did the same thing. Michael Cohen followed his orders to pay off Stormy Daniels, and Michael does a year or two in jail and solitary confinement, et cetera, and he's scot-free. Partly, these are people he was responsible for going to jail, and he probably has a little tinge of guilt. Plus, politically, they're his people, and he wants to tell his people, "Look what I've done. I'm Moses, and I've let your people go. Let our people go." It'd be like Robert E. Lee or or Jefferson Davis going up there and pardoning a bunch of Confederates.
That's a great metaphor. He has let his people go. A great metaphor. I love it. I got 45 seconds. Let's do this again when you come back on again. But tell me whether or not you believe very quickly that Congress is ready for a real conversation about abolishing the Electoral College.
I doubt we are because it's good for the Republicans, but Trump said something the other day on Truth Social, and he said the Democrats want to do away with the popular election and just have the Electoral College. Well, I don't know if he just totally missed or something because it's totally wrong and the opposite of what we want. And I've had this petition in to bill to abolish the Electoral College for years, but it takes a constitutional amendment. There are enough small states that have more power with the Electoral College than they would ever have with a popular vote, and they would not approve it. So I don't think it's likely to go through, and I don't think the Republicans will support it in any way whatsoever, but it's a vestige of slavery when they gave the slave states more power than the other was it had by counting the slaves as two-thirds towards a person, yet the two-thirds didn't get the vote.
That's right.
They gave basically a commodity. That slaves were thought of as a commodity, but for voting purposes, to appease the southern states, they gave them additional votes in the Electoral College and in the United States Senate, which is another minority group.
We have a conversation next week with the League of Women Voters, who is out aggressively and strongly calling for abolishing the Electoral College as well. So we'll circle back to Congressman Cohen's legislation and talk to the League of Women Voters next week about the Electoral College. I'm out of time. Congressman Cohen, happy holidays. Good to have you back on, my friend.
Thank you, Tavis. Be good.
Thank you. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Alex Murdaugh is appealing his double murder conviction, seeking a new trial for the 2021 murders of his wife and son. His lawyers argue the jury was prejudiced by irrelevant financial crime information and improper influence from a court clerk. Secretary of State Antony Blinken testifies before a House committee on the Afghanistan withdrawal. This follows a vote to hold him in contempt of Congress. Chairman Michael McCall emphasized the importance of Blinken's testimony for future legislation. The government is ordering national milk supply tests for bird flu to track the virus's spread. Dr. Peter Hotez notes over 700 dairy herds are affected and stresses pasteurization kills the virus, making raw milk risky. And the NFL announced it will play a regular season game in Berlin, Germany next year, marking the first time in the city's history. The league has previously played in Munich and Frankfurt since 2022. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Imagine a photograph of your favorite place in California. Then right in the middle of it, one piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean California. Zero litter is the goal. CleanCA.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Something is going on with LeBron. He was given an excused absence from Wednesday's practice and film session. Lakers coach J.J. Redick said LeBron is taking some time away from the team. LeBron has not been with the team since Sunday's win over Portland. He sat out that game with a sore left foot. Redick is uncertain if LeBron will be with the Lakers for Friday's game at Minnesota. It looks like there's been a change in thinking about Bronny James playing road games in the G League with the South Bay Lakers. LeBron's son will be with South Bay for tonight's game in Tempe, Arizona against the Valley Suns. This will be Bronny's first road game with South Bay. Crucial game for the Rams tonight at San Francisco. The Rams need a win to stay in contention in the NFC West. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is going for his 5th straight game without an interception. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
On behalf of her precious family, it is with profound sadness that KBLA Talk 1580 announces the passing of our beloved colleague, Robin Ayers, on Thursday, December 5th. Robin was a bright light. You could see her radiant smile through the radio. We all respected her immense talent, loved her jovial spirit, celebrated her love of family, and honored her faith in God. Our thoughts and prayers are with Robin's entire family, most especially her husband Rob and her twin daughters Brooklyn and Madison. We ask you to join us in praying for the Ayers family as they navigate the difficult days ahead. In her honor, all this week, we're broadcasting the best of the Rob Report on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Love your baby's teeth. Before that first tooth, wipe their gums with a washcloth. When those first teeth come in, use a soft toothbrush and just a tidbit of toothpaste. And take them to the dentist by their first birthday. Learn more at loveyourbabysteeth.com. Brought to you by the LA County Department of Public Health.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Eyes Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacin-capted Pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
As promised, the conversation right now with Mark Macarro on his impassioned pardon pitch to President Joe Biden aboard Air Force One. Macarro is president of the National Congress of American Indians. Everybody can't get FaceTime with the president aboard Air Force One. I ain't mad at Mark Macarro. Sounds like he used his time wisely. I'll let him unpack for you in his own words what he said to the president aboard Air Force One. But in case you've just tuned in, President Biden is making some news today. He has today commuted the sentences of 1,500 Americans, a record for one day. 1,500 folk have their sentences commuted. He has pardoned 39 people convicted of nonviolent crimes in this sweeping act of clemency during his final weeks in office. I was just talking to U.S. Congressman Steve Cohen, as you may have heard, and he and I both agreed that this is a layup. With all due respect to Joe Biden, it's a layup. Most of these commutations affect those persons who were released from prison and placed in home confinement during the coronavirus pandemic. There's a great deal more the president can do, and from my mouth to God's ears, a great deal more the president ought to do between now and the time that he leaves office. But he's got a headline today, commuting the sentences of these 1,500 Americans, but don't let the headline fool you. It's a layup. Mark Macarro, how are you, sir?
Okay, good morning. In my language, can you hear me?
I hear you well. How are you?
All right. Good. I'm doing well. Let me say in my language, meyu. And meyu is how we greet people. We say meyu. Good morning. And it's good to be here with you.
It's good to have you on our program. Let me jump right in and make the most of the time that we have. You just heard me a moment ago say that the president set a record today with commutations, the most ever, a record for one day. I'll get to your Air Force One conversation in a second, but what do you make of that news?
Sure. Well, seeing the headline this morning, early this morning, of course, the first thing we did was look into the print and beyond the headline to see if by chance Leonard Peltier was in there, and quickly saw that he was not. But we like the sentiment that's in the air. We like the direction this is going. We know this is the time of year where, and the time of an administration where a president does these considerations. So, we need more of that. We need at least one more key one for Leonard Peltier, but we're working on it.
Yep. So tell me about this ride on Air Force One with the president.
Okay. Well, the ride on Air Force One occurred, by the way, and that was my first and only lifetime ride ever. Let me say it was historical in regards to, from all the folks I've talked to anecdotally. It's been quite a few. Some are retired and some aren't. That this is the first time that tribal leaders of tribal nations have been asked to accompany the president on Air Force One. I'm aware of a couple instances, like during the Clinton administration, where one or two American Indians, they might have been staff, they might have been representatives here or there working on issues, rode on Air Force One, but as official, a delegation of tribal nation leaders. This was historically the first, and I think there were 6 of us from Indian country. So the ride on Air Force One, I assumed that my invite from the White House to ride would, and I was told it would be with a handful of other tribal leaders. I assumed that it was because of my role as National Congress of American Indians president, and I think that's correct. What I didn't know, and what we didn't know until we got aboard, was why we were being asked to accompany the president on this cross-country ride to Phoenix from Andrews Joint Base. I forget exactly what they call it now. To me, it's Andrews Air Force Base, but they don't call it that anymore. And so we learned once we got aboard, and Secretary Deb Haaland was aboard, Secretary of Interior, that the president, when we landed, that the president was going to be preparing the next day to make an apology to Indian country on behalf of his administration and on behalf of all the people of the United States for the treatment of Native Americans due to the federal Indian boarding schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so, which was enormously significant. And at that point, I think we were very pleased to be along for the ride on that. What we learned also, and this was all before we took off, we had about 45 minutes aboard before we took off, was that we would have an opportunity to have an audience in the executive boarding room where we rode the entire flight. And at some point, the president would go around the table, and we'd have maybe 5 minutes to chat with him and engage, and he would be there and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I made my mental calculation that I would use that time to ask face to face, because it's a unique opportunity to get any face time with a sitting president.
Indeed.
To ask him for clemency for Leonard Peltier.
Yep.
So, and that is what happened. So
let me ask you to do this, and we'll get back to that conversation and what you said specifically and what the president had to say in response. We'll come back to that in a second. But tell me right quick. I've got 2 minutes now. I've got 2 minutes now. We'll continue when we come forward. But tell me, tell the audience, for those who do not know or do not recall or need to be refreshed on who Leonard Peltier is. Tell me that part right quick.
Leonard Peltier was a member of the American Indian Movement. It was called AIM in the 1970s, and AIM was seeking to assert and protect Indian rights on several Indian reservations. And a lot of the flashpoint activity, however, came on the Oglala Sioux Tribe's reservation at Pine Ridge. And so there was a shootout that happened there as a result of this reign of terror that had been happening. There were 70 murders that took place during a very short time frame that were never investigated, and so this action happened, and a shootout happened, and 2 FBI agents and 1 Indian died during the Joe Stuntz was his name, died during the shootout, and so Leonard, long story short, went to he went to trial. He after being on the lam, he escaped to Canada, and he was found guilty of aiding and abetting. And then two other folks that were brought up on charges of actual being shooters were acquitted, exonerated, because it was self-defense. Leonard was not allowed to use that as a defense. So that's what happened. He's been in prison since. Well, it's been 50 years. It'll be this is his 50th year. He's 80 years old, so technically he's in his 49th year of incarceration for aiding and abetting. He's at Coleman 1 in Florida, federal high security facility within the complex, and he's not well. He's an elder, and he's got 80% vision loss, diabetes. He's got an aneurysm. It's hard for him to move his shoulders, his arms above or level of his shoulders, and he uses a walker. Yeah. So it's time for some mercy, and it's time for clemency.
Okay, so that's the backstory. We have discussed Leonard Peltier on this program any number of times. He was up for release consideration a couple months ago, and we had his attorney on, who was a former federal judge. His attorney was on this program, and we talked to him about the case for Leonard Peltier to be released, and within 24 hours, as I recall, they denied him once again a release. So that's who Leonard Peltier is. If you need to be refreshed about that, when we come forward, I want to ask Mark Macarro what he said to the president in the executive boardroom aboard Air Force One about why he ought to pardon Leonard Peltier, and then I'm curious as what the president had to say in response. You're listening on this day where the president is making news about pardoning people, commuting sentences. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
1 in 3 children born today will get diabetes. This sad prediction by the Centers for Disease Control will come true if millions of Americans don't improve their lifestyles, especially by changing what they eat, how much they eat, and how active they are every day. Every 23 seconds, another American gets diabetes. Stop diabetes before it starts. To learn more, contact the American Diabetes Association or download our free diabetes education programs at learningaboutdiabetes.org.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been hearing me guest host here on KBLA Talk 1580, and I'm having a blast. But I'm excited about joining the official lineup here at KBLA Talk 1580 starting Monday, January 6th at 1 p.m. Start your day with First Things First and Dominique DePrima at 6 a.m. Check out Tavis Smiley at 9 a.m. Tune into Truth Time with Dr. Cornell West and Nina Turner at 12 noon, and then tap in with me on The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show at 1 p.m. weekdays. I served 17 years in the U.S. Congress, and I can tell you it's going to be a rough 4 years, so let's navigate this journey together. It's The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, starting Monday, January 6th at 1 p.m. on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Bad Ash Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Mark Macarro, who's president of the National Congress of American Indians. You heard him tell the story earlier of how he and other colleagues were invited to ride aboard Air Force One from Andrews out to Phoenix, Arizona. And aboard the plane, or as they were preparing for takeoff, they were told that the president the following day was preparing to make a major move that they would be in support of. And they were told they'd have an audience with the president in the executive room, the executive board room aboard Air Force One. And so they were ushered in that room. The president comes in. They all get a chance to speak. And you said what to the president face to face, Mark Macarro?
Yes, that was the fifth of six speakers. So I dove right in. I said, Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity to sit with you and listen to us. And I said, I'm going to speak to you today about clemency for Leonard Peltier. Just dove right in. And my next comment was, I don't know, Mr. President, if you're aware, but Leonard Peltier is one of the oldest survivors of the federal Indian boarding schools. He was stolen or ripped away from his family as a child. I think he may have been 9 years old when that happened. He was forced to attend the Wahpeton Indian boarding school as a child. And I said, so it's quite fitting that we're all en route to Arizona, to Phoenix, to go to the Gila River Indian community where you will issue an apology for the boarding schools. And so I went on to talk, give the rundown like I did in the last segment here with you, and I said, look, there's members of Congress support his release, human rights leaders worldwide, but you need to know that the FBI has been the most effective voice against efforts to gain Leonard's freedom, and in the coming weeks, FBI Director Wray will present to you as fact a compilation of theories that have been abandoned or disproven by their own agency. But it's going to seek to convince you that these are facts still, and that you need to deny clemency. And what he won't tell you is that the government admitted decades ago that they could not prove that Mr. Peltier killed anyone. And so he stopped me right about there, and he says, wait a minute. He says, so was Mr. Peltier convicted of a jury trial? And I said, well, yes, there was a jury trial, and he was convicted, and there was an appeal, and he lost that. I said, but what's absolutely critical to know is that his imprisonment has been unjust, but that trial was flawed. It was a flawed prosecution. There was prosecutorial misconduct. There were constitutional violations in the trial, and I offered to bring him more information on this, on the details of that. But there was exculpatory evidence that was kept out of the trial that could have exonerated him had it been presented to jurors and to the court at the time. And none of that was allowed. When
we come forward in our remaining moments, I want to ask you, Mark, excuse me, what the president said. I mean, he asked that question. You responded. When you finished your presentation to the president, I'm curious if he had anything to say then. I underscore once again, I've said this a few times already, that the president today has made history commuting the sentences of 1,500 Americans, the most in one day. Again, a layup because most of these persons had been sentenced to home confinement during the pandemic. So that was easy to do with one fell swoop. There's a great deal more to be done. But to the point that Mark Macarro is making now, the president today pardoned 39 people, but all 39 of the persons he pardoned today were convicted of non-violent crimes. 39 pardoned today, but all convicted of non-violent crimes. You see where I'm going here. Leonard Peltier was convicted of a violent crime. I wonder how President Biden sees that, and perhaps he gave Mark Macarro some insight on Air Force One. We'll close with Mark talking about that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
I got a tight 2.5 minutes here, Mark Macarro. A tight 2.5. Let me ask you two questions right quick. When you, the president asked his question, you responded. When you finished your presentation, did the president say anything else about your request regarding Leonard Peltier?
So the presentation, my comments finished up by literally making the ask, and so he responded and he says, okay, he says, I can't make any promises, but I will commit that I will take a look at this. I will review it.
Perfect.
And which is hugely significant.
Yeah.
And so, I felt gratified that I chose that. And we're talking about a 10 to 15 minute conversation that I thought was going to be 5. So
right.
This is also on the radar screen of a POTUS.
As I said earlier, most of us will never get FaceTime with the president, much less on Air Force One, and much less 15 minutes to make our case. There are thousands of others who have asked for pardons, who've asked for clemency, and the president's got some major decisions to make if he hadn't already made them. But those persons did not get 15 minutes with the president aboard Air Force One to ask for a pardon. So I'm glad you were there on behalf of Leonard Peltier. I've got 90 seconds left. Tell me briefly about this week's final White House Tribal Nation Summit.
Yes. So this was the last of the annual White House Summit, Tribal Nation Summit that has been convened. It was a wrap-up and kind of a summation of what has been probably the most historic and beneficial of administrations for Indian country to date with the Biden-Harris administration. And it was a recap of all the highlights and the work that remains to be done. I think on point with today's discussion is one of the things the president announced on Monday in Washington, D.C., was the creation of a new national monument. And in this case, this is a national monument at Carlisle Indian School, or the former Carlisle Indian School. The structure's still there. The place is still there. And he in his remarks in doing this action, he said, this is being done because we don't forget our history. He says, we learn from our history. It's the only way to get to healing is if we know what happened. And so this was the first and the most significant. It's a dubious distinction, to be sure, because Carlisle set the mold. It became the model for what was over 500 boarding schools in the United States.
I'm glad.
Some were federal, some were religious.
No, so, I'm glad the president stepped up. I'm sorry, I'm out of time here. I'm glad the president stepped up in that way. And to your point, we don't forget our history. Well, that's not true for all of us. And there are a whole lot of folk trying to make sure we forget by not teaching American history. I digress. Mark Macarro is president of the National Congress of American Indians. Mr. Macarro, thank you for your work and your witness. Good to have you on this program, sir. Happy holidays to you.
Oh, same to you. Thanks very much.
My honor to have had you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Alex Murdaugh is appealing his double murder conviction, seeking a new trial for the 2021 murders of his wife and son. His lawyers argue the jury was prejudiced by irrelevant financial crime information and improper influence from a court clerk. Secretary of State Antony Blinken testifies before a House committee on the Afghanistan withdrawal. This follows a vote to hold him in contempt of Congress. Chairman Michael McCall emphasized the importance of Blinken's testimony for future legislation. The government is ordering national milk supply tests for bird flu to track the virus's spread. Dr. Peter Hotez notes over 700 dairy herds are affected and stresses pasteurization kills the virus, making raw milk risky.
One piece of litter. Litter has no place in our lives, not one piece. Together, let's change that. Clean